Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here with Laura Ganon, the CEO of FINK Mobility and the president of the FIDI Global Alliance. Laura, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me for this opportunity. I'm fine. I'm great.
It is so great to have you. And we got people tuning in from all over the world. Yesterday we had, a dozen different countries represented. So if you're out there right now, get in the comments, hit that like button right now. I want to know who you are, where you are, give your company a shout out, give Laura a shout out. If you've got questions about what's going on in Brazil from a mobility, relocation, shipping perspective, throw those in the comments. We're going to be talking about all that. We're going to be talking about sustainability, ESG. We're going to be talking about moving. We're going to talk about relocation. We're going to be talking about Brazil, all the phenomenal topics today. Laura, we've got a lot to cover. But first, I'd like to know, where in the world are you today, Laura?
I am in the wonderful city of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Rio. We love Rio on Love and Relo. Okay, sometimes we call it Love and Rio off the air because we love Rio. As everyone knows, Jana Chesanowski, who is also guest producing today. Shout out to Jana in the background there, is also from Rio. And Laura, have you been from Rio your whole life?
Yeah. I was born in Rio from parents that were born in Rio, and I've lived here all my life. Always traveling around the world, but always living here.
I always assume that people who are in Rio like move there because it's such an amazing destination. It's like in the United States, we have Florida or Miami or something like that. It's such a great destination, and you rarely see people who are originally from there. So you are an original Rio de Janeiro, and
you have to say, I am an original Carioca. Carioca are the people who are born in Rio.
I learned a new word. This is phenomenal. And we've got people checking in. Hit that like button right now. We've got Roberta Manocchio checking in. Hello, Ben.
Hey, Roberta. Hello,
hi. This is great. We got the Brazilians hanging out here with us. This is phenomenal. FINK Mobility. Really interesting here. Tell us a little bit about FINK Mobility. I hear it's a 100-year anniversary for you guys.
Yeah. In 2 years, 2024, we're going to celebrate a century of existence. It's a lot.
How do you? I can't even wrap my head around that. I'm running a company that's barely 2 years old, and in 2 years, your company will be 100 years old. How do you manage to? And I know you don't take responsibility for all 100 years. I'm not going to put that on you. But how does a company get to that point? That's incredible.
I think that first of all, the leaders of the company have to be extremely responsible, not to do crazy things, especially in Brazil, and very forward-thinking, because Brazil, it's not a country like in Europe that for the last century, everything was more or less, defined. Brazil has had a million changes over these 100 years, politically, economically, and to be able to keep a company always stable, always always growing. It's I compliment the owners and the leaders during all this time.
Yeah, and I want to get into that a little bit more because I want to learn some of these leadership secrets and some of the things that you've seen and the changes you've seen. We've got people checking in. Hit that like button right now. Let us know what questions you have for Laura. Put your comments in here as well. We're going to be talking about all things Brazil, FINK Mobility, the moving industry, relocation. Let's see. We got people checking in. It's been a while. Deluxe Sweets checking in. What's up, Deluxe? Who from Deluxe is that? Which Deluxe Sweetsian is it with us here today? I want to know. Sean Lucian says pining for some Guaraná, Antarctica.
He knows.
From Western Mass.
Brazil.
Yes, this is great. People are saying
it's the best Guaraná.
What is Guaraná?
Guaraná is like a soft drink made of a small little fruit that grows in the Amazon called Guaraná, and it's delicious. And I think it only exists in Brazil, actually.
I need to know more about this. So I love one of the best parts about this job and getting to speak to people all over the world is
Yeah, I
understanding the
know.
cuisines and the food. What would you compare the taste of this exotic fruit to?
Well, Brazil is huge. So we have very different kinds of cuisine depending on where you are in Brazil. If you go to the more to the northeast, you have more African influences. It's absolutely delicious. If you go to the south, it's more European, which is also delicious. But it's just a mixture of different flavors and different cuisines. And now you have all this fusion, Oriental. There's a lot of that. There's a little bit of everything in Rio and São Paulo, especially
So
the
what would
biggest
you
city.
compare? What would you compare Guaraná to? What kind
No,
of fruit?
nothing. Guaraná is
Nothing.
Guaraná. No.
It's nothing. Nothing. Jana, you got to hook me up with some of this. I need to taste this. I need this flavor in my life. Jana's checking in. Happy Thursday, everyone. So happy and proud to see you on the show. Laura, you are amazing and
Oh, thank
inspiring.
you.
Yes, we're going to talk about that. And I also want to hear about, Madam President of FIDE Global Alliance here. I want to hear about that and what does that role entail as well. Roberta saying Guaraná is one of our treasures. Oh, Brigadeiro is the other.
Brigadeiro. Yeah, he's
Okay.
absolutely right.
Oh, what is Brigadeiro?
Brigadeiro is a sweet made of condensed milk with chocolate, butter, and it's just very special, very Brazilian. Nothing like it. Because also, if you try to prepare with the condensed milk you get where you are, it's not the same.
Jana, where have all these foods been? I don't know about any of these things. I need to know about these things. This is great. We got Mike Quigley checking in from sunny Florida, aka the Brazil of the U.S. Mike, good to know. I didn't know you're out in Florida. Where you at? And I'm sure you're drinking great tequila out there. People are saying 100 years. That is awesome. Yes, we will talk more about that. If you have questions for Laura, let us know. We got Vinny Valverde. Cheers, Ben and Laura from Portland,
Hey.
Oregon.
Hi.
It's good to see Vinny, a Brazilian, on the show as well. Nothing tastes like it. Sean says Coke makes a version of it, but way too hard to find. Super interesting. Danilo checking in from Brazil. Hi.
Hey, Danilo.
Muito bom. Vinny says, I'm doing my best over here. Let's be honest. Cachaça is more Ben Speed. Yes, I am a Cachaça fan. Yes, I've done some Cachaça on the show here. Okay, question.
Ooh.
All right, we got the first question, and this is an important question we've been debating on this show, Laura, and I need you to weigh in. I also want all of the viewers to weigh in on this question right now. Jana Chezanowski writes, should I bring Brazil to Glomo or Glomo to Brazil?
Why not both? The sky's the limit. We have to do both.
I need to come down there. Let me ask you this, Laura, and I promise we're gonna get to relocation topics, and I promise we're gonna learn more about FINK Mobility. I promise all the things. But when should I come down? If I'm planning to make a trip to Brazil, Laura, and come see the amazing community down there, when should I come down?
In my opinion, end of June to end of July. It's our winter. However, our winter is just in Rio is the best time of the year. Not a lot of rain, and the temperatures are just perfect.
I like that. It sounds like my window is kind of closing actually right now. It sounds like now is the perfect time to be there.
Run.
Yeah, Jana says that when she gets on our calls in the morning, she's like, yeah, it's like 73 Fahrenheit here. It's beautiful outside. Vinny's saying, Glomo to Brazil, only if you bring me along. Vinny, let's go. Let's get that travel budget, baby. Let's go. We're heading to Brazil. Let's do it. Hi from Kansas City. We got Aaron checking. Hit that like button right now. We're going to get into some Brazilian topics. Larissa is checking in. Brazilian food is special. Hello, everyone. Larissa, I'd love to know your favorite as well. So I want to know, people are voting for Carnival. Yes, of course. Carnival. Yes. Super hot though as well. V2. Very cool. I want to know, Laura, where to begin. 100 years, FINK Mobility. First of all, I want to stay here just for 1 second. I hear that, and that's super impressive. How long have you been with the company, Laura?
30.
30 years.
33.
Wow. 33 years. So you're responsible for more than a third of this legacy. I just want to go on the record and say.
No, I have to be more specific. 33 years in the FINK group, but 24 years in the mobility part of the group, because the group
Can you
has
explain the difference to us?
Yeah,
explain the difference.
The FINK group has FINK Mobility. FINK Mobility is the company that does all the very special logistics. So we're talking about moving, relocation, immigration, fine arts, events of any kind, things that are not like general cargo at all.
Ah, I see.
Then we have multi-terminais, and multi-terminais is the part of the group that deals with cargo. So we operate one of the 2 port terminals in Rio de Janeiro.
Oh.
And we have customs bonded terminals in several places. And we also have a company working for the automotive industry and another for the steel industry. But I started when the FINK group had a shipping line, and I started in the shipping line. And then I went to the mobility industry, which
what made you make that change over to the mobility side from the shipping line?
Because at that time, with the globalization of shipping industry, it was very tough to keep a shipping line that was Brazilian only. If we were not global, we wouldn't have, all the interchange of containers around the world. And we sold the shipping line to Aliança, which was later sold to Hamburg-Sud.
Okay.
And at that time, I was offered to go to Hamburg-Sud or to stay with the FINK group. And I didn't think twice, obviously. And I said, I'm not even listening to any proposal. I won't leave this family and this business. So I went to FINK to do moving.
Wow.
And, in my heart, I was like, well, there was so much glamour in, being a ship owner. And now I'm moving people. Okay. And it took me 2 months to be absolutely taken and in love with this industry.
Why? Why was that? What did you fall in love with, Laura?
I'll tell you why, because I have already asked myself. When you work with cargo, you're dealing with people that work with cargo, right? They are not, in general, people's people. Right. But when we work with moving, you're working with HR people, you're working with people that like people, otherwise you can't stay. You're going to stay. You have to deal with the private lives of the family. So you have to like people. And I love people. And I met these amazing people in this industry. And over these years, I made friends for life. In what industry do you make many, many, many friends for life? There are friends like brothers and sisters that, they can send their children to stay in my home if they travel.
I'm going to send my children to stay in your home. Yeah. When I travel to Brazil, my kids are going to stay with you. I'm going to stay somewhere else.
Give me a call. Done deal.
No, but you're so right, Laura. You're so right about that. And it was funny because I was talking to Lynn Shotwell from Worldwide ERC about this before, when she came up to Portland, actually. And she was over at Vinny's house as we were having a little party. And then we went out to dinner the next night, I think. And I said, Lynn, you've been in other industries. You've been in immigration law. You've been over here with SHRM. You've been I said, is it like this in every industry where they have this kind of familial feel, or are we different? She's like, no, you're different. This industry is very different. Yeah. And I love that you say that. I've also worked in freight, and the saying in freight, at least in the US, is freight doesn't cry, right? When you're late with someone's household goods, you're going to get this
good way of
angry call and their tears and I can't believe this happened. And there's all this emotion around it. But with freight, it's like, hey, you're late, $100. Oh, you're late again, $100, whatever. And freight doesn't cry, but I'll say this, freight also doesn't hug. It doesn't give you a big old hug when it hasn't seen you in a year or two.
Right, Ben. I remember a coordinator. she was with us for already a couple of years, many years ago. And one day I saw that we have a beautiful garden in the Rio facility. She was in the garden sitting on the bench, and she had wet eyes. Said, what happened? Anything I can help you with? Do you have a problem? Said, Mrs., and there was the name of the customer, I don't remember. Mrs., she's pregnant. She's having the baby. Customs is on strike. So she was like suffering. I'm so worried that we won't be able to release the move before the baby comes. And I said, okay, it's very nice that you are, but take it easy. But it's what we feel when you have passion from what you do. You really care for your customers. You care for the people around you, your partners. And what bigger pleasure to spend the 95% of your life that you have to spend working.
Yeah.
If you're a normal people, not a hair or something, a royal family. But anyway, that you have to spend working, doing what you love with people that you love.
Yeah.
So I think I'm blessed.
You are blessed, and I am too, and I think we all are, and that's really the heart of the show, right? Is why we do this show, is to talk about the people and to talk about the relationships and bring that to people that can't always be with us. So I love the fact that we're starting off with the love and the passion for this business, and we have people commenting here. Janina checking in here with hearts. It's a Janina heart thing here. We got another one here as well. We got, hit that like button right now. Send some love out to Laura in Rio. Susie Chapman saying hello from Northern Virginia. This is great. And Vinny, you're making me hungry. I might have to go get some picana for dinner tonight. He's making some picana for dinner. This is fantastic. I love it. Put your comments and your questions in there for Laura, and we will get to them all, I promise. So, Laura, you told me how you went over to FINK Mobility from the shipping line, but you didn't tell me how you kind of ascended to running the company. I think that's quite amazing. We talk about women in leadership in the moving industry, and it's growing, but it's still not, we still don't have the equal representation that I think we'd all like to see at the senior level. So how did you ascend to the top post at this very well-respected, century-old moving company in Brazil?
Well, I think that the only thing I can explain is that since day one, like in everything that I do, I acted like the company was mine. Meaning that, I was not an employee concerned with getting my salary. I was really, really concerned in making sure the company would, and be modernized and always be ahead of the wave. And I have passion for the industry, and I'm a workaholic, and I am a very passionate person. I really put myself into anything that I do, and I was lucky. I think that luck is also important because I had people who noticed and who gave me all the opportunities, which is not that easy. So thank you.
I love that.
Clint.
I love that. I love that. Two things you said there, one about luck. I find that the most successful people always attribute it to luck. And a lot of people will say, no, you weren't lucky, you were hardworking. Yeah, but there's a lot of people that are hardworking out there. I can go out and walk around my neighborhood and see a lot of people that are hardworking that aren't necessarily what we would consider, successful, or aren't where they want to be in life. So luck has a lot to do with it. And I appreciate you acknowledging that. And, I think that I really am curious right now as I sit over here in the US and I talk to people all the time, and we talk about some of the most difficult parts of the world to do shipping and to do household goods moving specifically. And I did a poll with someone about 6 months ago, I want to say, and we asked this question. And do you know what country they said was the hardest to do moving in?
Well, you're probably going to say Brazil, but I would say Venezuela.
That's what they said. They said Brazil. Maybe they don't have a lot of traffic to Venezuela. Fair enough. I'd love to hear the argument. But they said Brazil. What are some of those challenges that we're seeing in Brazil right now with the movement of household goods and relocation?
Not right now. Brazil is a bureaucratic country. So there are lots of rules. And if you don't do it right, you get in trouble. It's very difficult to correct a mistake in shipping, in documentation, and but if you do it right, it's not difficult and you have no problem. The fact is that not everybody hires the right company that knows how to do it right.
There's a FINK plug for you. Call FINK if you need to get it moving there.
Absolutely.
Well, what are some of the things that people need to be aware of? What are some of the common pitfalls that maybe if they choose a company that's not quite as good as FINK that they might run into?
Well, number one, that you cannot send a move if the customer doesn't have a residence visa. A lot of companies do this mistake. They send a move without getting the green light from the Brazilian moving company. Also, not getting the green light on the documentation, because, if you fill the documentation wrongly, then, it's very hard and a lengthy process to correct. But again, if you do it right for the first time, if you make sure the Brazilian partner will give the green light, will check the customer's documentation, the shipping documentation beforehand, no problem. It's not quick. Customs clearance in Brazil is not like in the US or in European countries. Sometimes it can take 3 weeks. But other than that, having done it right, you don't go into problems.
So let's talk about timeframes. And I see Sean there. We're going to get to your question as well. I see an enchilada shout out as well that we should recognize. I have a question here as far as lead time though goes. So for people that are watching out there or in the global mobility profession, and they're thinking, okay, if I'm moving an employee to Brazil, let's say from the US, let's say I'm going from New York to Sao Paulo, right? What kind of lead time do I need to arrange for that? And what type of transit time should I expect?
Lead time will depend on the time of the year.
Sure.
Because, if it's high season, sometimes the companies cannot pack, especially in the US, because high season is very strong in the US.
Yeah. So for us in the high season here in the US, it might be anywhere from, a normal lead time might be, 2 or 3 weeks. A high season lead time might be, 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. A month or But transit time before the pandemic, I would always say think about an average of 60 days door to door. But now with the shipping lines crisis, the lack of containers, the lack of vessels, space on the vessels, who knows? You never know, because sometimes you just don't find space. California has a huge problem to find space on the vessels.
Yeah.
So
really. So now instead of 2 months, what would you estimate that to be?
3 to give, give and take. But I like to be on the conservative side because I prefer to give good news than bad news.
Yeah, you don't want to be sitting on a park bench with wet eyes because the pregnant transferee didn't get their stuff.
Exactly.
No, let me ask you another. Well, actually, you know what? We have a question here from Sean. We're going to prioritize the questions from the audience here. And if you have questions for Laura, put them in the comments. I would love to ask your questions. Also, don't forget to hit that like button right there. Let everybody know we are on here. Sean says, I'd be curious to know how remote and hybrid work at FINK and other orgs is perceived in Brazil. Like Rio, but I would be working. He likes Rio, but he'd be working remote in Campos de Jordão.
Well, before the pandemic, it was not usual in Brazil. But after the pandemic, many companies have accepted remote work. In FINK, we went remote in 1 week after the first case was announced in Brazil of COVID, because we had, of course, we did not have a pandemic in our contingency plan, but we have several other situations that would force us to go, to leave the facility. So we were prepared for that. And during the pandemic, we realized that working remotely works very well. So when everybody started going back to the offices beginning of this year, I decided to ask the employees what they wanted to do. And I was sure I was going to get the answer: remote work, home office. But funny enough, we had like maybe four in all our branches, maybe 4 people who would prefer remote. All the rest was missing the human contact. But Sean, going back to you, I would have no problem whatsoever. I have a manager who is now in the United States, and it's working perfectly well.
Yeah, it's interesting. We get this question a lot from a recruitment side, you know, are people hiring remote? Are they hiring hybrid? Are they hiring in person? And I've literally had this question probably 3 times in the last 2 days. And what we're seeing, at least from the US standpoint, is hiring managers asking us, can I post this for in person, for like in the office, or do I need to make it remote? So that tells me that they seem to have a preference for wanting people in, but the labor market is just such that they know they won't be able to find the people they want.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they dabble with this hybrid approach, and that seems to be enough ambiguity that they allow their remote people to be remote and their in-person people to be in person. Because if you say, oh yeah, we're in person now, except these 25% of our workforce that can't be in person get to be remote, and like, how do you have 2 classes of employees that are remote? And you know, so I see this starting to become a little bit of friction. But I wonder, I'm curious, what do you think drives? I mean, you mentioned the human contact, but what drives it? Is it that maybe they don't have the most ideal home office situation? There's a lot of distractions. Is it that, like, as my child joined our broadcast yesterday, you know, as you saw, or is it that maybe they the communication is better in the office because you can sit across the cube from the other coordinator and say, hey, what's going on with the shipment? You know, what do you think really is driving that? If you were,
I think it's a little bit of everything. Certainly for some people, the child at home, or not so comfortable, but communication, it's so much easier. What people is telling me, you know, like coordinators, for instance,
yeah,
it's so much easier to work together. And I think people got a little bit tired of video calls. And of course, when the pandemic started, I had to take action. Everybody goes to home office, but we have to keep the unity of the company. We have to get things going and create a new routine. So one of the first things I did was 2 things I did that I think were important: to establish the routine video calls between, you know, management, each department, everybody. We made something to include everybody, and to communicate by videos with all the employees to make them feel safe. I'm changing subject here because I'm talking about the pandemic, but basically, I think that this video calls get people a little bit tired as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can see that.
These are the reasons.
I can definitely say that. And great question, Sean. And Vinny says, it's the culture. Brazilians are very affectionate, and interaction is needed.
You said everything now, Vinny. Brazilians are passionate. Brazilians love people. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Are you seeing the same trends with your clients that you're moving as well? I mean, are you seeing that other, I mean, the moving industry is a little unique, right? Because I mean, how do you have a remote workforce when you're moving household goods, right? Somebody's got to be at the warehouse, on the truck, in the home. You know, it's a little different. We called them essential businesses here in the US when we had essential and non-essential workers, you know, and the essential workers were in transportation, because it is hard to do that remotely, right? Until we have driverless trucks or something. Are you seeing it for the people that you're moving, for the organizations that you're moving, whether it's, you know, oil and gas or other industries that you're working with? What is their stance on remote, hybrid, or in person?
Majority went back to the office, but with more flexibility than before. Like, okay, so I work in the office, but tomorrow I need to stay home because my child has vacation, or next week. And I think most of the companies are much more understanding, much more flexible. But as a rule, the majority went back to the office. That's what I see, what we've been seeing with the customers.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think we've all proven that it can work, and now we have empathy for people as well. And so now if somebody needs to work from home for a day or two, it's not as big of a deal as it was when I first came into to working and things. So really interesting. I want to talk to you about this idea of paperlessness. Okay, because I've worked in the moving business for almost 15 years. And one of the things people who don't know the moving business might be surprised to find is when they walk into an office of a moving company, typically, or at least the last 2 years ago when I was working for one, you would see stacks of manila folders, stacks of paper. I even joke and say we had 2 word processor, basically typewriters, for bills of lading, GBLs, things like that. I think there was a fax machine. We didn't use it, but it was still there. It hadn't been thrown out. Never know when you might need it. Got to keep it around just in case, So talk to me about where paper is in our business and the use of paper, the dependency on paper, and what is your take on that, Laura?
Well, I'll start talking about FINK, okay? In FINK, first of all, FINK has sustainability in its mission that was written 30 years ago, and FINK started due to a sustainability action that I can tell you later.
I would like to hear that.
Yeah, but we turned into a 99% paperless company the year before the pandemic, 2019. We had started this process before. We were slowly implementing, and we were lucky enough that when the pandemic hit, we were already paperless in all that we did in the office. So we had this policy of clean desk and all that. And our system, we had everything in the system already. The only thing that continued to use paper was the inventory at the home of the customer. That would then be input in the system, became electronic. And, FINK is a company of many firsts since the beginning. And I am starting to think that I'm going to be able to add another first to my list.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Because we started the project to be paperless in the inventory as well. And we have in-house developers. Because of our port operation, we have a huge IT department that I call the genius of the group. And, they develop our systems. So all the FINK systems are unique. And I asked them to develop, we brainstormed, we defined the new operation, QR codes on the sticker that will be read anywhere on the globe with a
I like
cell
the
phone.
idea of the QR code. That's really a nice technology that really had a moment with the pandemic, when all the menus went QR code, because QR codes have been around for a while, but they were kind of like, what is that? Do I need it? What do I do with that? How do I take a picture of it? What do I do with it? And I think that's a little thing that can make a big impact. I love it.
It does.
Continue.
Because actually some companies use barcodes after they have written everything on the box anyway, or on the sticker. And these barcodes are not readable by the other partners because, it's their system. So the idea is that a simple cell phone anywhere in the world will be able to read the contents of each box or volume. But what I was trying to tell you is that before reinventing the wheel, I like to learn from the ones that have already gone through the process. So I started contacting several partners around the world, developed countries in development, countries that are still, somebody must have already done it. I haven't found it yet. So, people in the audience, if anybody's listening to me and you already have 100% paperless inventory system where your packers do not write anything anywhere, please give me a call because I'm curious to know if I'm on the right way. We're going to start testing very shortly. And I'm super excited to get rid of the last papers we use in FINK.
I love this, and I love your passion for it too. And I think that something like this is such a it seems simple, but it's so hard because it touches so many things, so many processes, so many people, and so many places that you have to get on the same process and so well trained with the right devices and the right mindset. And I think it really does take a top-down focus in the organization to accomplish something so foundational as going paperless. And I hear people talk about it, but I almost never hear the CEO of the company talking about it. It's usually an operations person, mid-senior operations person who's talking about it. And I always wonder if they have executive sponsorship and support of the organization, because not only does it take focus, and not only does it take a vision and management to get everybody on the same team, it also takes money and it takes funding. And that's oftentimes where a lot of these sustainability efforts fall through, is they're not well funded. And so I really have to applaud you, Laura, for making this such an effort and boldly dreaming to have this to accomplish this. And I love the fact you're doing with QR codes. And I'm really interested to hear how you plan to make this work, because I also know that Worldwide ERC, that FIDI, that IAM, that all of these organizations want to work together to standardize our industry, right? Because one of the reasons that global shipping can be so effective, and I know sometimes we think it's not effective, but the use of containerization in 1948, when the shipping container was invented, the standardized shipping container revolutionized, the way shipping occurred. And it was because the container sizes were standardized. So if we can standardize the processes and the labeling and the paperwork and the terms and all the things, and this process is a big part of it, that velocity, that shipping velocity and the barriers to trade, start to fall. And I think the implications can be enormous. So I just say all that to say, I really applaud this effort, and I'd love to learn more about it.
Thank you. What I hear a lot is that people say that, the packers, they won't be able to use a tablet. They won't be able to learn the system, which I think is so disrespectful. Our packers are very smart. Yeah. But, I always reply saying, if they could learn how to use Instagram, Facebook, they can learn how to use the tablet with a system that is simple.
They're on a phone all day long, just like everybody else is, right?
No excuses.
Yeah, exactly.
Training. But Ben, you know what I also feel in our industry? That training is underrated.
Yes.
Because what I also hear a lot is that, I'll invest in training. Then they go to the competition. Come on. Instead of not investing in training.
Have you heard this saying?
Invest in training and your HR.
I love it. We have a saying. What if we invest in training and they all leave? And the other side is, what if we don't and they all stay?
Yeah, exactly.
And they have trained, right? And it's like, this is beautiful. I love it. it. Vinny's saying, would love to get rid of the bingo sheets.
And Vinny, the beauty of it is that the system, what will happen is that the checking of the bingo sheets from home to truck to warehouse to container, or the other way around, will all be done with the QR code. So no more bingo sheets.
Right.
And much faster.
I imagine that every time it leaves a truck, goes into a container, goes into a home, you're scanning it, if you will, right? And the homeowner, the transferee, can stand there and also, scan each package as
Yeah.
it comes in the door, right? And then that's the bingo sheet, right?
And
Vinny,
Ben, what happens
yeah.
nowadays, people write on the boxes. Okay, maybe they write on a sticker, not to ruin the box, fine. But they write in their language.
Oh.
So if my packers are writing in Portuguese, it doesn't help the German packer that will deliver the move. He will have to open the box and check.
We think our packers aren't smart enough to be trained, but yet we think that they speak 50 languages.
Yeah, exactly. But if my partner on the other side, his packer, has a cell phone, reads the QR code, it will be in the language that we want to input in the system.
Yes, you can translate it so easily from
And then the whole system, the whole process will be much more efficient, all the way up to delivery.
This is fabulous. Jana saying your passion is so inspiring. It is. It is inspiring. It's so wonderful, and it's great to hear people again. And I'm going to go back to this. It's great to hear people, at the CEO level of a moving company that have so much passion for innovation and for the future and for disrupting their business. Because I talk to a lot of CEOs of moving companies, and most of them are focused on efficiency to drive the bottom line and doing more with less, right? And I feel like this is a cycle of disinvestment in the business that's going to make the business contract every year, right? Instead of expand. And I think people need to be focused on the opportunity. And I love your mindset, because I think it's an abundance mindset. It's an investment mindset. It's not a scarcity mindset. It's not a mindset of disinvestment. So again, I applaud you, Laura, really.
But then, you know what? If you think long term, not even long, medium to long term, all that we talk about of investments in sustainability, in processes like being paperless for the inventory, all this pays off. It pays off quickly, actually. Yeah. You change the lighting system of your warehouse, you're going to pay some money, but then you're going to have lower,
more efficient
energy,
lower electric bills. Exactly.
Bills. Same with the water, rainwater for gardens and bathrooms, less water bills. And invest in technology. You can have your people taking care of the customer service. And because customers, I tell you, in this industry, my experience, they want to talk. Yeah. They want to talk old-fashioned way on the phone.
Right.
I think they need to know we are caring. They need this emotional support.
Yes.
And we don't want all our coordinators typing inventories.
Right.
We want them to be, relaxed to talk to a customer.
I like to say that human beings should focus on human things. So we let technology do redundant, they do these processes that are just the same over and over, and we let the human beings focus on human things, which is really talking to other humans, right? And to your point, and seeing that that the person handling your move cares as much as you do about it. So wow, Laura, this is amazing. I want to ask you, recently you were elected to president of FIDE Global Alliance. Will you talk about FIDE real quick? And when you also talk about what is your job as the president of the FIDE Global Alliance?
I have this passion for the industry. So when I had my first opportunity...
I couldn't tell, Laura. I couldn't tell at all.
When I had my first opportunity to work for the industry, not just for FINK, I immediately jumped at it. I was invited to join the LACMA board 20 years ago. And I was I remember the president of LACMA at the time, Aldo Heinemann, called me. And he said, this. I said, sure. He said, but Laura, don't you want to think about it? I said, no, I want to do it. So I was the first woman elected president of LACMA, which I'm very proud of. And then as soon as I left the LACMA, I was invited to join the FIDE board. And of course, I didn't think twice either. I thought it was a wonderful opportunity for me to learn, not only give, because we work for free and we work a lot. being in a board of an association, but you learn so much, it rewards you, definitely. But anyway, I joined the FIDE board, and now I'm the president, after 8 years. And I have to tell you that it's not very much that changes from being in the board and being the president, because at least in my experience, I had the wonderful opportunity to be with smart, great people with me in the board. Never in 9 years, man, we had a discussion that didn't end in consensus, or that if one person was like, not so much, but fine, if majority wants, it must be the best. Never. No vanity involved, no, everybody wanting to do the best work for the industry. So being the president now, of course, I have more responsibilities, and I have the responsibility to lead the initiatives and the boards and come up with more ideas. But then we have Jess Van Zas, that is like an amazing Secretary General for FIDE. He knows everything about the industry. The FIDE office, with people that, I wish we had time to name each of them, because they do such an amazing job. And it's easy. And then the board, as I said before, so it's not a challenge, it's a real pleasure. And learning every day with FIDE.
I love it. I appreciate the insight into what the board is like. I've got a question. What are some of the initiatives or things that you are envisioning to focus on?
Well, my main initiative during my presidency that I want to see, and it's already taking shape and some things are already happening, is sustainability. Okay, I don't want to be naive that I want sustainability just for the greater good of the planet. Of course I do. I have 2 granddaughters. I want to make sure they have this beautiful Rio de Janeiro full of forest here. But it's also a need for a survival of a company, in my opinion. I mean, it's obvious that the human civilization needs to change urgently what they're doing. And we have to think about it. And fortunately, the big corporations are demanding these changes from their supply chain. So FIDE has to help. Can you imagine 600 companies, each doing its own thing, and some companies in countries that they don't have the resources to do what it takes or to even know what to do? So FIDE took the initiative to create a coalition with the main global associations to start designing the roadmap for the mobility industry. And we have already published a document that I really urge you to read, because we talk about sustainability for our companies and we think about light bulbs or, maybe paperless, but there are so many little things that we can do, but it's overwhelming. So what FIDE did was to take the US sustainable goals, written for up to 2030,
right,
and turned these complex ideas that are overwhelming into concrete actions for the mobility industry. So when you read this document, you see, oh, I can do this now. Check, check, check.
right.
And then you feel, I started. And after you start, the ball rolls and you start to understand that it's possible and that it's necessary. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, Ben, just to digitalization, because I think that the industry, the moving industry especially, not so much the mobility like DSP and immigration, the moving industry is very conservative, very old-fashioned.
Sure.
We must digitalize our processes, not just to become paperless, but to be able to be mobile, to be able to work from anywhere, have all the information on our fingertips. And then with this comes cyber risk. And cyber risk is a threat, is a very huge, important threat. That's the other thing that we want to help the industry make sure they take the preventing measures. So we have a new FAME standard as of 2023, created now. It's called FAME 2022. You're familiar with FAME?
Yes.
For those who are not, FAME is the quality certification developed by FIDE with EY since the late 90s. And FIDE companies have to be audited every year, but physically audited every 3 years. But that 2022 will be the last standard to be physically audited. We're going to go remote. And we need to have all the companies prepared with digitalization. So this standard helps each affiliate to achieve these goals.
Wow.
So it's very exciting and very, looking ahead.
I like the fact that they're actionable and you're giving people actions that they can actually, work on without having to necessarily, you're doing the thinking for them and putting it there in a very actionable way that they can work on it. Vinny threw out a comment here that I don't know how to read.
Thank you, Vinny. Thank you.
Thanks, Vinny. Appreciate it. That's awesome. So I love all that. I have to ask, you're CEO of FINK Mobility. You are president of the FIDE Global Alliance. While you're not saving the world and running companies and not, nonprofit associations, how do you find time to have a personal life and balance everything out?
Well, I sleep very little because I don't like to sleep. I think after I bed, I have enough time to rest. So fortunately, my body doesn't need too much sleep either. So yeah, I have like a very long day normally. Because I'm passionate of what I do. I even share it with my family and they love everything that I do. Yeah. I have to tell you something funny. I have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter. She lives in the United States.
Oh, and where in the US?
In Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, yes.
And she calls me every day on video calls. Oh. So we spend like at least 45 minutes daily having a conversation. And the other day she called me in the morning. I was in the office. So I said, Kira, I have to be quick because grandma is in the office and I'm working. And she said, I want to see. So I said, okay. So I showed the office, the warehouse. I went out. I showed the lift vans. I showed the carpentry where we do the crates. I showed the trucks. And then, said goodbye. 2 weeks later, she's playing on the swimming pool with her mother. And she starts getting far away. So my daughter said, Kira, where are you going? And she said, I'm going to FINK. And my daughter said, what? You're going to FINK? Yes, I'm going to FINK. I'm going to work with grandma.
Oh my goodness.
So we have succession in the company for several generations.
I love it. Oh, that's great. That's fabulous.
FINK is present in everything that I do.
That's beautiful.
And FIDE, as well. I don't know. I find time.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It's wonderful. This has been a lot of fun. I want to ask you, do you have time for a little game we could play, Laura?
Of course. I love games.
Okay. All right. So we have a game here that we call overrated or underrated. Okay. Those are your two options for responses here. So I'm going to provide a topic and you're going to tell me if it's overrated or underrated. And then I'm going to tell you if you're right. Okay. All right, here we go. The first one, cyber risk.
Underrated.
Or underrated.
Underrated. People need to take action. People don't pay attention. I don't know if I'm getting it right. Underrated by people, right? That's what.
Yes. No, okay. I think you're correct. I think cyber risk is one of those things that it's probably the biggest threat that we don't discuss openly in the moving industry. I know of 1, 2, 3, at least 3 moving companies, I have firsthand knowledge of them being held for cyber ransom.
No, absolutely. And I don't know how many companies really have a cyber risk insurance, because it's very important, not just for the insurance itself, but because the insurance company also analyzes your process to make sure you are safe, and they have negotiators in case of trouble. So I don't know how people would survive without cyber risk insurance and risk assessments on the IT systems.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. All right, the next one. The benefits of diversity.
Underrated. No diversity, no future. I mean, come on, guys. It's all human beings, and nothing makes a difference except your talent and dedication for what you do. So take advantage of diversity. Can be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean that's all a company is the people, right? And
Absolutely.
the quality of the people and the quality of experience of those
And
people.
the different cultures. Huh?
For sure. Let's do another one here. The need of intensive training in communications.
Underrated. 1 out of 9 problems that happen for lack of good communication.
Wow.
And in my opinion, in my experience, okay, yeah, you may have a problem because of a technical machine broke. Okay. But the rest in our business of service rendering, communication is key. Clear, good communication. So in FINK, we have a training for communication specifically to make sure people communicate clearly. And
interesting. Yeah, you know, the problem I struggle with communication is, what does that word mean? Like defining that word. Like, does it mean the timeliness of it? Does it mean updating people? Does it mean the quality of words and the descriptiveness and my ability to articulate? Does it mean being explicit and not withholding, things, or implying things, but saying them, outright? What does it mean? Professionalism and politeness. Does it mean what does it mean? The word communication to me is hard to understand sometimes. Where do you think the biggest opportunity is?
I think that all you said, and it's the best list of definitions for the word communication I've heard. And I would only add one thing, is have the feeling of the person you're communicating with, because it's very important that you understand the way that person is ready to receive what you're saying. And added to what you said, I think is the definition of communication, actually.
That's really
so
interesting.
The training we have touches all these aspects.
I like what you said, though. It's about understanding how well the person is receiving what you're saying. Yeah, fantastic. Next, the urgent need of paying attention to ESG.
1,000,000 times underrated. Please, everybody, we need to move forward. We need to save the planet, and we need to keep our companies alive.
Yeah, it seems pretty pretty important. Let me ask you this one. Let's go to the last one here. What do you think about strict hierarchy in companies?
Overrated. It's important to have some structure in the company, of course. But I think that when you work as a team and you give the freedom to your team to feel they own what they do. And like I said in the beginning, like the company is theirs. Without this, my boss, I think that you get a much better result. So in FINK, we try to be as informal as we can. We do have our organogram, we have our hierarchy, but we, on our day-to-day, we are pretty, like a big team brainstorming together to do things right.
Yeah, that's really great. That's really great insight there. Thank you for sharing that. Laura, I'm going to ask you if you want to leave us maybe with just one thought today for the audience. What thought do you want to leave folks with?
I think let's all have respect for everything that is around us, our planet, the people. And I think that if you choose one word to describe sustainability, the word is respect. Respect the differences, respect nature, respect everything that you are lucky to have in this beautiful life that somebody gave us.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great reminder. RESPECT, respect. Fantastic reminder, Laura. Laura Ganon, CEO, FINK Mobility, and president of the FIDI Global Alliance. Laura, thank you so much for being here today with us.
Ben, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Everybody who watched, thank you very much.
Yes, thanks everybody out there. We wouldn't have a show without you. So thanks. Hit that like button one last time and throw your comments in there. Thanks everyone. We will see you next week.